Hey there, APUSH fam. Let's start getting into some content here and start thinking about what you've been doing. Have you done anything yet? I've got 4 people that have turned into guided reading. There's still 47 people. We still have to try to get everyone into the Google Classroom, and I'll work on that. The challenge is going to be is that you're not going to have the normal motivations that you do to get this work done, because I don't think I can put these in as grades, so I'm not going to. We're going to have intrinsic motivation a lot. We're going to, about let's try to continue what we've done. Let's try to keep things going as best we can. Let's try to get ready for that exam, which we think is still going to happen. And that exam, I mean, that still is some extrinsic motivation for you as far as what you want to try to do on, try to get on that even under these difficult times. So that's what we're all operating on. That's what I'm operating on right now too, is the motivation to try to keep things going and try to get you ready for that exam as best we can. And I still think you can do real well on that. We're getting into chapter 35. The good news on this chapter, as far as where we are, is this typically would be a chapter I assign over spring break. We're a couple weeks ahead of where we normally are. So this was normally, just kind of a reading and discussion chapter. So it actually kind of works out, if anything can work out these days, as far as where we are with that. Let me give some overview of some of the early things, right? I think it's really interesting to compare the difference in the United States after World War I and after World War II and the approach the United States had in foreign policy. I mean, after World War I, the United States says to Europe, pay back your debts with the Dawes Plan, that circular flow of money that we looked at that didn't make any sense. Military isolation, political isolation, obviously the Depression made that worse. We talked about after World War I, this is just not a country ready to lead at that point, and compare that to what happens after World War II. I mean, we see a country ready to take that on, and there's some really important things we need to know about. So we look at the Marshall Plan, the infusion of money into Western Europe, especially trying to get those economies back on their feet. That way they can participate in global trade. The idea being that will help them get stable governments so we can avoid what happened leading up to World War II. The Truman Doctrine, which of course is going to start us down this policy of containment. The Truman Doctrine pledging support to countries that are trying to resist communism. It comes up in Greece and Turkey at first, and this is going to lead us into that containment, and we're going to see the Korean War, which is the first major conflict. Later on, we'll have Vietnam. We're going to see in this chapter before Korea, there was, sending money to China, and how once China fell to communism, this idea that containment was already failing, and the desire to step that up and leading us into the Korean War. So a lot of important vocab in the early part of this chapter. As it is, and there's also the issue of the cold front at home is a big part of this. McCarthyism being the most well-known aspect of that. The fear of communists again. The second Red Scare. We saw the first Red Scare after World War I. We see it happen again after World War II. And the last part of this chapter is going to get to these really important economic changes that take place. What is the continued role of the federal government in the economy? I want you to pay attention to this issue of the Sun Belt and where we start to see defense contracts go as part of this post-war prosperity. And then we're going to start to get to these foundational changes in demographics in the 1950s. We're going to look at a country that starts moving out to the suburbs, the baby boom generation, of course, in the years after World War II. So it's a pretty diverse chapter. I mean, I'd really think of it in 3 phases. You've got, foreign policy issues with the United States taking on that role in world leadership. We've got issues with the Cold War at home and this McCarthyism really witch hunt, which proved to be largely unfounded. And then we've got these economic changes that took place, in the post-war years. So get going on that if you haven't. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to set it as a priority to try to figure out what would work best as far as trying to get some sort of virtual class going. Like I said in an earlier video, I think let's just try to set small goals, see where we go from here, and just try to keep things moving forward. So I hope you're doing well today. I hope you're starting to get some work done, and I will talk to you soon.